Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's the radio voice of the Chicago Bulls and a member of the Chicagoland Sports Hall of Fame. Please welcome Chuck Swirsky to the program. Chuck, it's great to have you on. How are you?
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
So, Chuck, what's your evaluation of the Bulls' past season?
Well, the Bulls past season, we saw inconsistency. I thought we saw spurts of what's to come regarding the Vucevic trade with Zach LaVine playing and Patrick Williams and Kobe White. So I'm encouraged, actually, as we go into the offseason, not knowing, of course, what is to come. But I do find that when I watch this ball club, I see the ability of a guy like LaVine and Vucevic running a pick and roll, with Kobe White's confidence growing, and with Patrick Williams, who, in my opinion, is going to be a terrific player in this league for many, many years.
Who stood out to you most from this past season amongst that group that you mentioned?
Well, obviously, I mean, LaVine made the All-Star team, so I think that is number one. And to see his growth and development over the years, even dating back to his one season at UCLA, then Minnesota, and having an ACL, the trade with Butler, coming to Chicago and whatnot, I'm really, really happy for him. And now, of course, he's a member of the United States Olympic team. And then you make a blockbuster deal, bringing in Vooch from Orlando, who's such a skilled offensive player and a wonderful, wonderful teammate. And then on top of that, you've got Kobe, who I think really started coming into his own, and he found a niche that I think he's going to be able to build on for 21-22. But again, it gets back to a guy like Patrick Williams, who I think, and this is my opinion, but I think a lot of people probably are in the same boat with me, this kid has unlimited potential.
What have you seen from Williams to make you think that?
Well, number one, I love his attitude. I mean, this guy is a team-first player. Secondly, he is strong, he's athletic, and he wants to get better. The thing that impresses me, if you want to really break it down, number one, he knows how to play angles. He knows how to play angles with the ball, without the ball, and then defensively. And the fact that, and this tells me a lot about this young man. And remember, he was the second youngest player, only to Alexei Pukashevsky of Oklahoma City in the NBA at 19. So one thing is, he wanted to guard the best offensive player on the opposing team. And it didn't matter if it was a 5 or a 1. He wanted to get after it. To me, that tells me a lot about his heart and about his basketball DNA. And having played at Florida State, watching Florida State, he was not a starter. He was coming off the bench, and he did whatever, in the case of Leonard Hamilton, the head coach of the Seminoles, wanted him to do. So I think he's got a great upside. I love his makeup. I love everything about him. And I think we're going to see his growth and maturation with his confidence in 21-22.
What's his ceiling to you? What could he be in the NBA?
Well, I really don't like putting ceilings on players, because I think every year it's different in the NBA, as we know. Different teammates, different skill sets develop. So I'm just going to leave it at this. I think Patrick Williams can be as good as anybody. As you look and evaluate his skill set now, I think this kid has a chance to be a very special player in this league.
Chuck Swirsky here on Sports Talk Chicago. Chuck, you mentioned Kobe White. How impressed were you with his growth down the stretch specifically?
Well, that's a great point. Here's the thing. Kobe, went through a couple of phases in different layers this year. He struggled, and then he came back, and then we saw Kobe have a great run at the end. And I'm really, really impressed with his attitude. Again, here's a young man, and he's still very young, 20 years young. And he's a young man who has an upside. I think he's still learning and finding himself in the NBA. And I think that when I look at Kobe, number one, he's a winning player. He is a winning type player. You could put him on any club in the NBA, and coaches will love him because he will do whatever it takes to win a ball game. So I think going into another season with the second year under Billy Donovan and a full training camp, hopefully he'll be healthy for a full training camp. If not, it'll be a work in progress. But, you know, at the end of the day, Kobe White's going to contribute. And to me, he is a plus player.
Is he a starter caliber? Because the Bulls have shown interest right now in Lonzo Ball. What do you think about that, and think about White's role then for next year?
Well, I allow players to define their roles. You know, a lot of time coaches, they're asked, what role does this guy play? Well, to me, whatever you're called upon to do, that is your role on a particular night. And you look at Thaddeus Young, and I think that defines what a winning player is. He really didn't care what his role was. Now, what Billy Donovan did, he put him in a position offensively to highlight and really excel what his game is all about. But in terms of a role, there were times when you asked Thaddeus Young to come off the bench, you asked Thaddeus Young to play the 5, you asked Thaddeus Young to play the 4, you asked Thaddeus Young to start. It didn't matter, because at the end of the day, winning matters. So when someone says, okay, what is his role? Well, let's take a look at his skill set, and then let's amplify that skill set, and let's develop that skill set. And then whatever role the coach wants you to play, that's what you will do. And good players accept it, understanding that, listen, no place and no understanding of coaches, players, there are always going to be challenges. But if you accept your understanding of what you're asked to do, things will turn out for the best.
Is Lonzo Ball a winning player? Would he be good for the Bulls?
I would say this. If Lonzo Ball becomes available, and right now we don't know if he's going to be available, because if New Orleans decides to re-sign him, then he's off the market. If he becomes available, whatever team comes up with him, okay, whatever team gets his skill set, he is a winning player. Okay, I'm looking at Lonzo Ball now, strictly speaking, as a player, not with a specific team. I'm looking at Lonzo Ball as a player. And if someone says, is he a winning player? The answer unequivocally is yes.
What other needs could the Bulls address in this offseason, Chuck?
Well, I do think they're probably going to have to look for a wing. But you could probably say that about every team in the NBA, because this is the way the game is going, with 3-point shooting, with the 3 and D, meaning that you got to shoot the 3 and you got to defend. Here's what's going on. It's almost like what Joe Madden did with the Cubs, where he's putting players around. It didn't matter whether Chris Bryant was playing third one game, or left field, or right field, or first base. Here's the story. The way the NBA is going, and probably for that matter all sports, the more versatile you are, the better chance you are of, number one, having your best players on a daily basis. But also from a versatility standpoint, you can do a lot of things on the court, whether it's switching, whether it is picking up players on a full court press, whether it's playing angles, whether it says, okay, I want you to play point, I want you to play the 3. All these things come into play. So I think, personally, the way the game is going, the more versatile a player can be, whether it's catch and shoot, putting the ball on the floor, defending different positions, that's what, to me, what scouts are looking at. And this is going to have a ripple effect on not only the collegiate game, but the high school game. And you're going to see high school coaches start flipping players to a multitude of positions, because this is the way kids want to play. And for that, sign me up. I'm all for it. Instead of saying, all right, well, he's a 5, or he's a 4, or he's going to be a 3. Well, how about this kid is a basketball player, and this guy can cover multiple positions. And that's why I'm a big fan of Patrick Williams.
Do you expect him to be the big guy to pop off for next year? I mean, Levine and White kind of really did that this year. Do you expect Williams to have a big year next year? Is he the guy you're most looking forward to?
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to Williams next season because I think that whether it's summer league, whether it's the select team, whether it's just playing ball and developing on your own, this kid gets it. And he's a humble young man. He was raised so very well by his family and very well coached in high school and at Florida State. Let me tell you a story about Florida State basketball. I've known and followed Leonard Hamilton since his days at Kentucky. I am a huge Leonard Hamilton fan. If you play ball at Florida State for Leonard Hamilton, you better know, number one, he plays a lot of players. So you got to check your ego at the door. If you're expecting to play 40 minutes at Florida State, not happening. But he will get, if you're a good player, you will be in the rotation. But you also have to play defense. If you can't play defense, you're not playing in Tallahassee, Florida, period. End of story. Go somewhere else. Florida State kids get after it. I am a big, big fan of that program. So Patrick Williams is going to develop and he's going to grow. He's going to get better. And that's, to me, I think you're going to see a jump. To what degree, I'm not sure, but you will see a jump in Patrick Williams in 21-22.
Chuck Swirsky here on Sports Talk Chicago. Chuck, is the expectation for the Bulls to make the playoffs next year?
I would think the expectations are that they make postseason. I'd be disappointed. I was disappointed they didn't make postseason this year for a play-in game. But I do believe that this club, not knowing the roster, again, we're having this conversation right now in July. So there's a lot going on here between now and training camp. So I have to preface this, but I would be disappointed if this team, knowing the aggressiveness of the front office and knowing the coaching staff and knowing that the core group of this team for 21-22, yes, if you're asking me, yes or no, yes, I do believe they will make the postseason. What that will look like, I can't tell you because a lot of things come into play regarding health, injuries, as we know, that's been an issue for the Bulls the last few years. But I think they do have the core talent and the coaching and the front office and the commitment from ownership to be a playoff postseason team.
Were they a playoff caliber team this past season?
I think if you're asking me, should they have been in at least a play-in game? Absolutely. The thing that really hurt the Bulls at the end of the season was Levine missing 11 games. Had Zach not gone into the health and safety protocols, I think had he been on the floor in uniform, no question in my mind, they're in a play-in game because teams in front of them were struggling at the end of the season. And, coupled with the fact Levine's out, and then all of a sudden you've got a very demanding schedule at the end of the year with teams. Normally you'd say, okay, well, this team's going to rest players, that team's going to rest players. But now with seeding the way it came down with 1, 2, and 3, these teams were battling for the top spot in the Eastern Conference, and 2 and 3 for that matter. So I do believe that it was a perfect storm, unfortunately, for the Bulls to be left outside that window. But I do think that coming in 21-22, this club is at least a play-in spot.
When could you see them become a legitimate finals contender? How close are they?
Well, I mean, first things first. Let's let them get into the postseason, and then we'll talk about that down the road. I mean, these are steps. They are not in the Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Philly category. So I think the fans understand that this is a brand new front office. They've had one draft. They've had one free agent period. Billy Donovan did not have the luxury of a training camp. So I think you're going to have to, let this thing breathe a little bit and let's take it one step at a time.
How much hope do you have for their future?
Well, by my very nature, I'm always an optimistic person, and I'm always very much of an encourager. And I do think this front office will get it done. Now, it's going to be difficult and challenging at times because, with the cap, and they've got to figure some things out regarding long term personnel. But I think in time, this club will challenge for an elite position in the Eastern Conference with the hope and the guidance of the front office, Billy Donovan. Obviously, ownership is very, very committed to winning, and the fan base is dying for a winner, and they're very passionate for a winner. And so I think when you select a guy like Williams, and you've got guys like Vooch and Levine and Kobe, that's they've got some pieces here. This isn't an expansion roster we're talking about, or a team that's in a major rebuild. This is a team that's got some pieces here. So we should not neglect the fact that you've got to give this front office a chance to do their thing. And I think they will get it done. I'm very impressed with Arturas. I think Mark is in the same boat where they evaluate talent, they know talent, they understand talent. They have put players in a position at the United Center and the Advocate Training Center where they know that they're going to take care of players. When I say take care of players, they want the line of communication open. They want players to feel that they can come to them anytime and talk and offer an opinion, or just have the sound of the ears of the voice of the front office. And I think that's very, very healthy.